Hello and welcome to Everyday Journal number 109, your favorite, most deceptively named bi-weekly legacy podcast. If you want to support the show directly, you can become a Patreon on patreon.com/everydayjournal. We are back. Callum, how's it going? You just told me you went all around London to find the best place for your dogs to pee on. Did you find it?
I just want to do that every time now. It sounds so good. I've been waiting to open my beer especially until you start going. I just took the dogs for a nice little walk. They went for a nice long walk in the afternoon, and then they like having like a nice evening walk just to, get their energy spent out and stuff. Always nice talking to them. But I didn't go all around London, I'll admit. London's quite a big place. Yeah, we're a dog podcast. I mean, we always have been. I mean, dogs are
I didn't know about that.
Are you a dog or a cat person? Me staying on the podcast depends here.
Okay, well, I used to say I'm really very much a cat person, but over the last 10, 15 years, I really got into dogs because basically my sister got a dog and my mother got a dog. And I used to be mortally scared of dogs because when I was a child, I grew up on a farm, and like on a neighboring farm, they had a dog and I was just like playing with it. And it literally took my entire hand into its mouth and bit down on it. And I mean, it's still attached, but that scared me for like for life almost.
You know what? That's fair. Like being attacked by an animal when you're a kid is quite scarring. So, but anyway, glad you're coming around because dogs are the best, obviously. Still like cats, but in general, though, I'm in an amazing mood. I just finished work for a week. I've got tomorrow off, just as like the first chill holiday since basically COVID. Got no plans basically apart from playing some Magic and Warhammer. We're having our monthly tomorrow. Our next London Legacy Monthly is tomorrow morning. We've got it's sold out within a week this time, so we've got 40 people rocking out to play some nice Legacy. I'm not even playing myself. Like there were so many people wanting to play. I half gave my spot up, but the other half was just I don't know. I quite like just being around and watching it. And I'm going to take some pictures, and it's going to be just I'm so excited for it as every single time. So. Yeah,
but dude, that sounds amazing, right? That's kind of what you're striving for as a community. That people like it so much they just want to be part of it by hanging out. They don't even need to play.
Yeah. Well, it's only me, but but no, I think there are a few people coming along, and I've just said, yeah, come along. I'll play some games of Legacy. Like we're going to play some pre-modern to the side as well. It's just going to be a good fun day, and then we'll cube in the evening and go to the pub, and it's just going to be lovely.
Oh my god, I want to be there. But by the way, you mentioned pre-modern. That format has been picking up a lot of steam, right? I don't know. I've seen it mentioned here and there casually, but all of a sudden, like in my local play group, everybody's playing pre-modern, and I've heard a lot of people online talk about it. Is that the next big thing, or is it already the thing?
It was gaining popularity, and it is also just really fun. Like it hits all the I think key nostalgic kind of elements where. The play is pretty good as well. Like there's nothing too degenerate and busted and stuff. And you have like very different archetypes. You have elves and Sly and Psychotog and like Exalted Angel decks and whatever. And I think people are just realizing it's really fun to play, and it gets that nostalgic feeling going. And there's like all these different archetypes. Plus, the Tolarian professor guy, he did a video on it not too long ago, so it exploded from that. I mean, I was in a Facebook group getting all the notifications because I like to see what was going on with it, and then there's just a huge influx of new players, and all just like so excited to play it and to learn about it, and they're all just like, oh my god, Slide was my first deck when I started playing 10 years ago or whenever it was, and it's just so cool to see people like, falling in love again with their old favorites and stuff, so... Yeah, it's a really fun thing to play. So I think I've got like 5 or 6 decks. I'm going to bring them tomorrow.
Wow. Yeah, basically all it took for me to really get the pre-modern bug, even though I haven't played it yet, was somebody sent me a link to, is there like the central pre-modern website or something? Because I went to a place like that, and it had like deck lists for, I don't know, the 10 most popular decks in the format. And I was like, like you mentioned the guy, right? Oh, I used to play this. And I look at this like, oh my god, this is basically like old extended almost. And
it is very similar. I think it might be a bit out of date unless they've updated it since I last went there. So the metagame's been evolving, and there's like Blue White Standstill is one of the best decks and stuff as well. But the moment I saw decks with Mastercorin and Madness with Wild Mongrel as well, I was like, I'm just so sold. So I think when I ordered some Mastercores when they came in, I was just like staring at them, just like lovingly, like Gollum, my baby. I love it so much.
I want to say Masticore is one of the biggest legends of the game as a creature, just because of how much it dominated. It's like it's up there with Morphling and stuff for me.
It's iconic completely, and there's just nothing else to say about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, the card, like that card taught me so much that I guess like the most important thing the card taught me is that the upkeep is before the draw step. So
yes,
I used to lose my Mastika so many times.
I'm sure I did the same as well. The old, like, I guess standard, I can't remember if it was actually standard or extended, but the old Tinker deck was my first deck I ever built that I like net decked. When I was super, super young, like we just played like multiplayer with 120 card decks, and I had a mono black deck with Nightmare and like 10 Hand of Deaths and stuff. And then the first deck I built, as I said, like net decking was the Tinker deck with Masticores and like Stroke of Genius and Mishra's Helix and Crumbling Sanctuary. And so yeah,
I was going to say Crumbling Sanctuary as well, right? Phyrexian Processor.
Processor plus Voltaic Key is just. It's the original twin. There we go. That is the original twin.
Slow twin.
Slow twin, yeah.
Have you ever watched that match between Bob Maher and John Frankel on ESPN? Like, I want to say
I don't know if I've watched it over 50 or over 100 times, but it's
okay.
a lot. It's one of my favorites.
Actually, I'm going to put it in the show notes. Let me put a note down here in our show notes. Frankel versus Maher. Yeah. Okay.
This match is like, I won't put many spoilers, but like when you have people pumping out so many 1919s and they're both at one life, and then the Crumbling Sanctuary comes along, it's just, and then the Colossus. Anyway, I won't spoil it too much. It's just, I'm getting super, super excited.
Dude, I was super excited to hear that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're headed for like an amazing weekend, right?
Yep. So yeah, Legacy all day tomorrow. Sunday, pretty chill. I might play the challenge actually. It's been like literally 3 months since I played a Magic Online challenge. I'm usually doing things on Sundays and just out and kind of haven't been enjoying the weather and stuff. But I've got a whole week of doing nothing, so I might as well do more nothing.
Awesome.
How about you? I know you've been playing like a bunch of Legacy and Paper as well recently, and you're back to work as well. What have you been up to in general?
Yeah. Like, first of all, I've been back to work. I've been working from the office again, like the old 9 to 5.
You've been loving it, right?
It's the best. Dude, it's the difference is insane. Like after working from home for 1.5 years with like a proper computer and like 3 screens and technology, I literally went back to the Stone Age. Like I put it in the show notes that my PC at work is literally melting my brain. You know that thing when you have like a super slow system because your memory is full and everything is going on, and you click something, basically like what it feels like to be on a computer while Magic Online is booting up, right, when the card images aren't loaded yet, except this is my perpetual state for 8 hours a day. And I click something and it takes like 5 seconds to register. And I'm like, how did I ever spend like several years on this computer? I literally can't comprehend.
It's like a no going back thing, isn't it? So I think you're going to have to find something. Break it on purpose and then have to order a new one. Yeah,
immediately, like I texted the person in charge and I was like, I need a new like this just like this is not working. I'm literally going home now. And like a couple of days, like I literally went home early because I just couldn't take it anymore. And then I hit up Min and I was like, Min, I just like need a proper office PC, and he approved the one I suggested, and that one also got approved by the person in charge. And now we got that, and now I got really pissed because I don't have like a tablet for our trade fair, because we're doing the thing now where nothing is printed anymore and everything is digital, which is like good, but also like you need something to present it. Like if everything is digital but you don't have a laptop or a tablet, it's like, yeah, everything is digital. I have this QR code. Good, thank you for coming to a trade fair.
Yeah, go to people like, I promise you, it's really good. I swear, you can't see it. It's that good.
Maybe. I mean, maybe I could even do that, but yeah. So now we ordered like a proper tablet. So I'm looking forward to a trade fair because that's my favorite one of the year. It's for divers, and divers are probably the best guests you could ever wish for. They're just like so chill, and oh man, yeah. I if you ever want to open a hotel, like make it specific to divers because divers are amazing.
Noted. It was on my to-do list actually to open a hotel, so I will do a dive bar hotel.
A dive bar. We actually wanted to do that, but the KWS, the Kenyan Wildlife Service, they were like, you know, this is a national park, and we can't really allow you to open like a floating bar inside it. So we put like, we built it onto the shore, and now it's also really cool. But yeah, that's my work. For Legacy, we had our second paper tournament. The first one I attended because now I'm double vaccinated. Like the first one I didn't want to go to because I wasn't yet. But that was
I saw some pictures, great. And there's some cool people there as well. Looks so fun.
it's such an amazing place as well. It's called Etc. in Freising, and we've been going there for almost 10 years to play Legacy on Tuesday nights, and they are so incredibly chill. They just allow us to have the place. They're like, okay, everybody just like pays €5 extra, but that's also a voucher. So if you wanna, like, if you buy, for example, 2 drinks over like the entire tournament, you're already like basically broke even. And a lot of people afterwards, they just stay for dinner and everything. And recently we expanded. Now the next one is going to allow more than 32 because usually like 40 people or something want to play. And they were like, okay, if you need, we told them we need maybe 1 more hour because we need to play an extra round. And we apparently like that was like the really big thing. Like, oh, do we have to start early? And I was just like told that they told us, well, no big deal. We just open an hour later. If you guys need more time, it's all fine. Like, what?
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it's so huge. Like, it could probably fit way more than that. But, I mean, COVID and stuff, like, it's probably, like, not what's happening right now. But this thing, especially once the COVID situation hopefully gets better next year, this thing could really become the place to play. I want to say Legacy, at least in southern Germany. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, we're the biggest, because I'm not too familiar with like what goes on in northern and like the rural area and stuff. And then also there's a really big tournament in Aalen and Tübingen. So I just want to say this is one of the biggest places to play Legacy in Germany, and it's growing, and it's absolutely amazing. And one of the big things is that it allows proxies. So it attracts so many people, and I'm just loving it. I'm really just loving it.
It's just, you just want to gush about it. I see similarities with when we started the London thing, because we were always getting kind of good weekly numbers, and I think you used to get great weekly numbers at the same place or somewhere different where you used to play in a pub. But we never had monthlies, and we like asked all the shops to do it, and they, one of them kind of took the piss and like charged £25 entry, and there was a Savannah first place, and obviously no one turned up because it was ridiculous. And so we were just like, okay, fine, if none of you all fucking do it, we're going to do it. And then obviously after we started doing well and selling out, all the shops came to us and like, hey, actually we will host you. It was like, nah, too late. We prove what you can do. And like at the beginning we were getting like 15, 20 people, and we were thrilled with that. We were so happy. And then towards the end, we got like 64 for a few times and stuff. And again, now the fact that we're off the bat, selling out and stuff, it shows that, I know London's like a bigger city, and there's probably more people here that play Legacy than smaller places. But I think if anyone's like, wanting to find a community and they feel like they don't have it in their city or towns and stuff, like, this place in Freising as well is proof that you can just like find a restaurant, make this kind of deal. I think a lot of restaurants now are probably, really happy to have people in as well. And you just, it will be what you make of it. Get people together, allow proxies. You don't need to do prizes like very much even. People just want to play. So it's just awesome seeing these other things popping up. Even though you've been there for a long time, just seeing these paper things come back, and the numbers are great. Like, people are just dying to play Legacy and paper again. So I'm here for it.
I was going to say, like, I don't even remember what the prices were, but on the other hand, also, I got crushed. Like, I think they do prizes for the top 50%, so it's not super top heavy. But I got crushed. I went 2 and 3. I arrived late. Somehow I thought it was like half an hour later, and like when it started, I got a text and I was like, Julian, where are you? I'm like, hey, I'm on my way. I'm about to be there. So yeah, the round is already starting. So that was super nice of them, because my opponent decided to wait the extra 15 minutes, and we got like a 15-minute time extension.
Oh, that's sweet.
Which turns out we didn't need. I was playing green, white, black Maverick, and he played Madness, and he totally crushed me. I think both games he put something like 12 to 15 power into play on the first turn. And I was like, okay, Mother of Runes, go, and it's like all the monsters in the world. This is like the worst horror movie ever.
Yeah. Oh, I freaking love that deck. I actually top 8'd or top 4'd the last monthly with that deck on the Sunday. It was so fun. Okay. Yeah. Actually, you told me about that. Yeah. Super fun deck. How did the rest of the thing go? You said you didn't do well, but I want to hear.
Yeah, who cares, right? But
yeah,
I played the heavy anti-elves. Not only main deck but sideboard. Like I think I had like 4 canonists. I had 2 main deck plague engineers. I had 2 main deck Spirit of the Labyrinth. I had way more. I don't even remember. Like, I think I had 4 more dedicated anti-elves cards.
You're like this arsehole that fosters a family. You're like, yes, I love you, Korean Ranger. I love you. I've got you a job finally. I love you, all my beautiful elf friends. And then you just come out and murder them all. It's just...
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I played Top Miracles, and I played at some tournament in Italy, and I crushed elves twice. I felt so bad because... they knew that I was
Yeah.
kind of like elves, and they were like, dude, why are you doing this to me? But yeah, I think when you play a deck, you develop an understanding about how it beats hate, and there's always that thing, right, where we joke about how Miracles players are always most concerned about the mirror, or Delver players are always like so concerned about the mirror. It's just like when you understand the power you're wielding, it's like, oh, I gotta put so much against it, and I guess that's part of it. But yeah, I got destroyed. Oh yeah, by the way, I also played 2 even Mind Sensors. I played everything, and Gadok.
I mean, you just love Mind Sensor anyway.
Yeah, that card is so good. But, oh yeah, actually the reason I played that is because it also basically covers against Doomsday really well, and it's also really good in the mirror when people are trying to do like Night of the Reliquary and trying to dig up equipment and Green Sun Senate and stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of the Mind Sensor. But yeah, I got Madness in the first round. In the second round, I managed to beat Buck Chain of Smog, I want to say. It wasn't like the all-in Chain of Smog deck. It was basically like Buck with all the Buck stuff and the Chain of Smog combo. I got actually paid off in the second game. In the second game, it went super, super slowly. Like nothing happened from their side, even though they kept 7. And I had this hand that could really explode if I just tapped out for a single turn, but I didn't want to tap out of my Swords to Plowshares. So after like 3 turns or 4 turns, I was like, maybe I really messed this up. Maybe I should have just like tapped out this 1 turn for Night of the Reliquary and then just like gone Wasteland, and then the game. And that was this exact moment when they found their 4th land and they went like, what's it called, Riverbloom Apprentice or something?
Yeah.
Into Chain of Smog, and I had the Swords to Plowshares, and they even had to target themselves. So they basically, like, I mean, that's how you'd play Chain of Smog, right?
They go hellbent, then you just sort it.
They literally lost everything, and that was I felt so rewarded for making the conservative play, which is not always correct, but basically the way it worked, like the way I think about it is they kept 7 and they missed their 4th land drop and they hadn't played anything on the board before. And in my head, I'm like, how does that make sense? Did they keep like the most reactive hand? But what are they going to do? Like, they didn't fatal push my Dryad Arbor. Like, what's it going to be? Like, I couldn't like piece together a hand in my head that you would keep there, unless like you already kept like a marginal hand and you literally only drew crap. But obviously they didn't because they missed a land drop. So in my head, like, just didn't make sense. So I'm like, I want to make sense of this. I'm gonna keep the Swords to Plowshares open, and if I just like fade away in the game because I didn't put too much stuff on the table early on, so be it. But yeah, that actually felt super rewarding to get the win that way.
Yeah, nice. It's a good read.
And what happened after? Oh yeah, afterwards I played against the Sagavan, blue-white-red Sagavan deck.
I mean,
I played. What's the
sad,
opposite of? No, I'm happy. What's the opposite of a nemesis?
I should know that. My mind is blanking.
You should really. I don't know.
It's just like a friend, I guess. But that's not the word for it.
My friend. Yeah. Okay. Let's call it. Let's say I played against my best legacy friend.
Yep.
I'm literally 9-0 against him in our legacy history. Like, I didn't even notice that until like I was like 5 or 6-0, and every time we played, he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm coming to pick up my loss again." I'm like, what's going on? He's like, "You're undefeated against me."
No.
And we keep going, and it's I won again on the back of Choke. Like, Choke totally devastated him, and that's all she wrote pretty much.
I just googled opposite of nemesis, and it's saying friend or ally. So, ally. I was kind of right.
You're amazing, dude.
Totally, yes. But poor guy. I hope he gets you one day. Guy, if you're listening.
He got me once in Modern. I don't even remember what we played, but in Legacy, it's... Yeah, so I guess overall we're like 1-9.
Okay, that's not too bad. Pulling it back.
Awesome. Yeah, and then what happened afterwards? Oh yeah, afterwards I got destroyed by elves.
Justice. So much justice. You so deserve that.
Games.
You so deserve that. Oh, I was waiting. It's like, I hope he played against elves and like get crushed. Obviously, did they just like do the nut flop and which like turn 3 kills and?
No, like the hand wasn't even all that good. Like I think in the first game, actually maybe I stole a game. I don't even remember. No, actually I didn't steal a game. Like I had Gadok, which held them like back so much. I think after the game they showed me like 3 natural orders and a Green Sun Senate, but just, I didn't really have much else going on. Like I could get in there for like 4 damage a turn, but it was just like rather slow. And eventually they just, you know what elves always does. Like you can have everything. Maybe, yeah, I think I even had like Even Mind Sensor or something, and they just went Cradle, Cradle, Kraterhoof, attack you for 10,000 damage. I'm like, oh, let me calculate. Okay, you got me.
I can block 3. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I guess, yeah, like you said, I got what I deserved. And in the last round, I played the most Magic I've ever played in a single match. This is the least Magic I played in a paper game of Magic in my entire life. I got turn 1 killed by Doomsday in the first game. Like, they were on the play. I think I didn't even show them what I played. They just like went turn 1 Doomsday and had like a Lotus Petal, drew into the pile, and that just like got me. I was like, okay, cool. Actually, yeah, on the second game, they went turn 1 Doomsday again, I believe. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get them because they tried to do it with Sheldog Isle, and I had a Wasteland. And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna steal that game. So I Wastelanded the Sheldog Isle, and then it still died on the next turn because they also put Oracle in there, and I was like, okay, whatever.
They usually do that. That's I can beat that. So we have our local Tuesdays, and I've been playing Imperial Painter the last 3 times, I think. And this last Tuesday gone, I was 2-0, and I go against a guy on Oops in the last round. I know he's on Oops, and poor guy got the round 1 bye. Round 2, he killed a Dredge on turn 1 both games. And then here, like, he knows what I'm playing as well, so I'm on the play, and I play a turn 1 Painter, but I think I'm ultra 5 looking for something. Yeah, he just kills me on turn 1, easy. And then game 2, I keep a turn 2 Trinisphere, and I thought he might respect Surgicals more, but then he just kills me on turn 1 again. So he had 4 turn 1 kills, didn't lose any games, and a bye. So he played 4 turns of Magic. Oh, and 5 with my turn 1s.
I want to read that guy's tournament report.
Yeah. It was just...
You know what you should do? You should actually write a tournament report and then just like contact Channel Fireball or stuff and be like, oh, dude, I want to submit my tournament report. Oh, yeah, please just don't send more than, I don't know, 4,000 characters or something. Oh, yeah, it's just like 200 characters. It's fine.
200, that's a lot of games. That's a lot of Oops matches you can get in 200 characters.
So, yeah, the next tournament is actually coming up on October 17th. And... I have no idea what I'm going to play there. Maybe I'm going to go back to Elves. Like, I don't know. It's just like what I enjoy. Elves.
It's kind of you.
Diver, Doomsday.
That is the same weekend as Four Seasons, which I booked my ticket for. My flight for. Need to see what the flying situation stuff is. You do need to do a lot of tests to get into Italy, but I'm crossing my fingers that goes ahead. And
that's going to be a big one again, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to play like a good deck, like Sagavan or something boring, or play Painter. I'm like, I really don't know. I'll probably play Painter. Yeah. I'm going for the party and the good time.
Yeah, that sounds great. Marius has been telling me to play Painter on stream for like forever. And yeah, it's funny, like we barely see Painter online at all, right? Is there anybody who really made himself the Painter guy?
I think Jack Utley, Jack Kitchener, who's early 26 for a bit. He top 8s sometimes, and he had like a really good weekend a few months ago. Other than that, you have some like good people that sometimes play Painter, but not really. I played a league last night and got a nice 4-1. She got crushed by Luanil on D&T. But other than that, I don't know, it felt pretty good. Like I beat 2 Sagavan decks. My new favorite thing is just like locking them out under Trinisphere and Pyroblasting their lands. Oh, it's so good. they play very few lands, so you just Magus their Sagas and you Pyroblast their jewels and stuff with Painter in play, obviously. And then
Isn't there like this new tech for Painter? Because that's what Marius keeps telling me about literally all the time, and he's so convinced it's one of the best things ever. And I'm trying to find it. Breya's Apprentice. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, I haven't tried it. It's from the new Modern Horizon set. It's like a 3-mana 2/3 on ETBs. You get a Thopter or something, and then it taps to do a few things. You can tap and sack an artifact to give like something +2/+0. You can exile the top card of your library and cast it that turn, and it might have another ability. I can't quite remember now.
You may actually play the card. So if you hit a land, you can also play that.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And you can get it off Recruiter, which is pretty sweet because it's a 2/3. Need to try it more, but it strikes me as like a really good value card. I might be
Yeah, that's basically how Marius has been using it. He's using it like a big value engine together with like Painter, or like you try to find it off what's the other Goblin Engineer?
Yeah,
and because it's an artifact itself, and it produces some reasonable card advantage, and he's really, really excited about that. Because when I first looked at it, I was like, is there really nothing better? But he not only told me that it's like okay, he like went out of his way to tell me that this is insanely good.
Actually, I forgot about Engineer being able to search for it, because the deck is still playing like 4 Welders and 3 or 4 Engineers, and I can see making the token and then like, you know, getting a value off random artifacts. I can see it being great there actually. So I got to try it. I'm going to put one in my deck after the
try it out.
After this podcast. I've got my painted deck on the table right next to me. I'm going to put one in there.
I'm actually sitting in a league right now. I'm 4-0 with elves. I grabbed Aaron Relentless lists that I think top 3. Was it the challenge or the I think it was the challenged with so. the reclaimer based one that Newton originally created. I think Newton is playing the version with white now, and Aaron is still playing the one with black. And it's kind of scary because the black version doesn't really remove artifacts or enchantments. And thus far, I've played it through a couple of leagues. It hasn't really been an issue yet, but it's scary, man. But it feels really good. Like, I think my second league I have 5 out immediately. Hopefully this one's going to be a 5-hour as well. It almost feels like Maverick elves. That's what I named it on my Magic Online thing. It feels so mid-rangey, like you barely ever like combo people out with glimpse, which I guess is, that's a downside. But the upside is you really get to play the mid-range game. And I'm all about the mid-range.
Yeah. Yeah, I did try the Reclaim build a few times, and being newer to elves, it didn't click with me the same way that being able to like glimpse chain did. And I guess I just won with it less, so it didn't click with me as easily. But it's obviously very powerful. It continues to do well. So yeah.
Yeah, it plays very, very differently, like really very, very differently. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm all excited about that right now. Let's see how that goes. Maybe I'm going to play it on
Can you send me, just asking for a friend, sorry, can you send me that Anti-Elves Maverick list? I fancy playing a league after this.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you're easily 5-0.
Yeah, funnily enough, like half the cards in that list aren't that important. Actually, who am I kidding? They're all really good against me. But yeah, turn 3, double cradle, and to Behemoth, that's it.
Nice.
So, should we move on to next, the first section? We received a couple of listener questions over the last weeks.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Awesome. The first one's coming to us from JVA. Do you guys see any similarities between Ragavan Urza's Saga and Oko in respect to the number of decks that normally wouldn't run the card, but now just slot it in as a win condition? It seems to me they can bring these cards in with very little deck building requirement. How would you compare like the meta where everybody splashed Oko to the, I don't know, abundance of Ragavan and Urza's Saga? I don't know about that.
It's somewhere in between the middle of yes and no, which is the worst answer. I feel like the cards aren't as like, homogenous and horrible to play against an Oko. They have, like, Ragavan especially does have some kind of play patterns that are a bit monotonous sometimes, and it's much more swingy, and it's obviously cheaper, so it can, just hit these random high rolls and just, run away with the game. But Oko did this thing where it, like, acted as removal and a very legit win condition, and it was just harder to deal with, and it was just... I just think it was like a much harder card to fight, and so the fact that it slotted into every deck was both easy to do and just harder to fight, even when it's like the known thing, like, especially when it's like, alongside Veil of Summer, you're struggling to even Pyroblast on the stack and stuff, and it was just a nightmare card to be fighting against, even if you knew it was coming from every deck, even like just if it's in the sideboard or the thread of it made it harder. So I think there's just more answers to Ragavan as a Saga, and so the numbers could be similar, but I don't find them as, oppressive or horrible to play against as Oko, personally. How do you feel, Julian?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because I don't really feel like that, especially Ragavan, is all that present in the metagame. I mean, the decks who were going to play it are going to play it, like basically all the diver decks, right?
Yeah.
And then the one deck that was kind of created out of it, but that's also part of like because of the power of prismatic ending, is that blue-white red Sagaban mid-range deck. But I don't really see Ragavan being splashed in too many other decks. Like, we've seen it in Sneak Show here and there, and I think for like a couple minutes somebody tried it in the Band mid-range Miracles deck, but I don't really see it anywhere as omnipresent as, like, we used to see Oko in Elves, we used to see Oko in Maverick. Oko was basically everywhere. Like, people played Oko in Doomsday. I guess somebody has tried Ragavan in Doomsday, but that's far from as popular as Oko was. And also, I guess a part of that is that Oko is, even though it's 2 colors, it's much easier splash into decks because blue and green are probably like the most common colors in Legacy right now, whereas red and black have always been those auxiliary colors, I want to call them. Like, I always consider like blue, green, and white the core colors of Legacy, at least right now, whereas black and red is something you add to a deck. You rarely ever base your entire deck on black or red, unless, like, I guess there's like tribal synergies and stuff and goblins.
You're making Jax very sad right now.
Yeah, Checkers is the one person who used. I guess what does he actually play right now?
I mean, okay, just a very slight tangent, then we'll come back to the question because actually I've got a little bit to add, and I think you're right. Would you consider Storm decks black as their primary color? Because I think a lot of combo decks are black. Like I think black is a core, probably more than white.
Yeah. I guess Storm decks are interesting in the sense that they play like what's the black core of Storm decks, like
Dark
rituals and discard,
and Thoughtseize, yeah.
Doesn't really. I mean, okay,
for me, white is white. Apart from D&T, white is the most classic staple on color. Like you just play white for source splashes, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like in that original Trinity, I proposed like white is definitely like the one you could definitely make a case for it not being one of the core colors of Legacy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just say it's blue, and then the rest are below, which is probably actually close to the truth, honestly. But yeah, just quickly. So should we jump back to the question? I think after hearing you talk about that, you're right. Actually, I think the numbers. They do slot in with not that much deck building cost, or at least less than what we kind of assumed at the beginning. Like Saga obviously gets way better if you're playing an artifact-based deck. You just have more things to find with it. Your constructs are bigger and stuff, but you do need to have some consciousness about what you're doing with it. Like, are you gonna the Ragavan decks are they're getting retrofit to Foundry and then not much else, but then they do use the constructs quite well because it's their win condition that just plays this kind of slow removal based game and stuff. And Ragavan, the deck, this is going to sound like not a big deck building cost, but you do need to be able to fetch red on turn one. And a lot of decks that splash red do not want to do that. So I think there's a real cost there.
That's actually a really good point, right? You definitely be fetch if it's just something you staple on, you're probably going to fetch a duel for Ragavan. And I mean, Ragavan is nice at one of the worst feelings is if you're on the draw and your opponent goes turn one Ragavan, like you wasteland them. It's what the fuck?
That's the worst. Yeah, you can't do that. But with Oko, so I mean, even non-blue decks were non-brainstorm decks, I should say, were splashing it because you can just fetch your blue source on turn 3. It's very easy to curve into and stuff. Whereas Ragavan, the moment you don't play it on turn 1 or 2, it starts to lose its power. The dash is very good and stuff, but you're not going to also be fetching to a splash card to be dashing and stuff. You can just do more powerful things from turn 3 and 4. So yeah, I think there is more deck building costs for these two cards, and so it's not quite as much as Oko.
Moving on to the next question, coming to us from Needon. How do you feel about companions as a mechanic now that we've had time for the post nerf? If WotC announced they were going to print some new ones, would you be happy or terrified?
Run away so fast! Oh my god! I actually think the idea was amazing, and some of them are really really cool. I liked the Hippo Karuga. I think that was a cool one. I thought the Amori, who you have to have the whole deck the same thing, and Lutri is super super cool as well. And with the change to tacking on the 3 mana, I think they're really cool. And honestly, Lutri could have stayed the same, and some of the others could have stayed the same as well. But Lurrus, I just think it's the best card printed in the last 10-20 years. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the best comparison to not comparison, but how far they missed on this was someone was okay, so they added 3 mana to companions. The difference of 3 mana is huge in this game. The difference of 3 mana is Time Warp versus Time Walk. That's how big 3 mana. That's how that's how Wizard of the Coast sees 3 mana. So yeah, companions was such a big miss the first time. The idea was awesome. The making them execution, that's the word, was not. So I feel like they would have learned from it, and then if they made new companions, they'd just be really bad and not very exciting. So, and I think they would have to be really careful with it. So I think I would prefer not to see companions again.
I agree. I would also prefer not to see them if they were to come back. The one thing, I think I've said that on our previous companion-based themed episodes, I want them to be super highly specific, and that's exactly the opposite of what Wizards were trying to do, right? If you look at the cards they printed, all of them have dual, hybrid mana costs because they want them to be as widely available to as many people as possible. And I think that's part of the downfall. I think, for example, if Lurrus was, I don't know, double black or even triple black, it wouldn't have cost nearly as much of as it did, problems as it did in the format. But yeah, this is how I'm seeing it. If I were ever to print a companion, I want it to be, for example, a tribal companion that costs you like triple red, triple blue, and it does like for something for Merfolk or maybe for goblins, but it also has that deck building requirement that you need to play at least, I don't know, 20 goblins or something, you know, that I think that could be really cool and really flavorful and also like help out tribal decks in the first place. And that's how I would imagine them coming back.
Yeah.
And that also like makes it much less likely that they get broken in other decks.
Yeah, like this is more of I think it was more of a fluke than like planned, but some of them are quite interesting, like, and they make very cool deck building decisions. Like, I mean, Lurrus before I'm sorry, not Lurrus, the Otter, I've just said the name a second ago, Lutri. Lutri like was 5-0ing some legacy leagues with just like singleton decks, and that's super cool. Really, really cool to see that. And Kahira, like, you know, Marcus and Francis, they sometimes play it as their companion, and then they just like cut Snapcaster Mage for it, but it's kind of cool to have that. And like Francis at our Tuesday locals was playing that as a companion, then using Solitude as like an extra card to pitch to if you used to as well. And it pumps Solitude as well, which is pretty cool. So there are like cool ways to do it, but just how hard they missed on Zerda and Lurrus especially. Like Lurrus is still just wrecking Modern as well. It's
right. They actually, like you said, they added 3 mana to the mana cost, and it's still like really good in Modern.
people are really calling for it to be banned in Modern now, even after making it 6 mana.
Dude, how much mana would it need to be to like be to be balanced in Modern? Then like pay extra 5 or something.
I think that would still that'd be better. Like the fact that you can pay it 3 then 3. If it was maybe like 5 then 3, it'd be okay, but.
You know what I would love to do? Not to. Okay, I was going to say not just, no, but seriously, not to rub it in, but really just to see their reactions. I would love to go to the development team just as they're like about to give the check mark to companions and tell them, this is going to be the first thing that gets banned in Vintage for power reasons.
Yeah. And, you know, there is the argument, like it had to be banned because, like, you know, making it one of like it doesn't work and stuff, but it's just the most broken card they've printed in so many years. I can't remember.
I will never forget when one of our legacy chats, like Daniel Götzschel, the very first thing he said when he saw it was, "This is better than Black Lotus," and I will never forget that, because in my head I was like, okay, this is probably like too crazy, but turns out it gets banned in Vintage. Like, what the fuck? That guy's a prophet.
Yeah. The first decks I built, I posted them on Twitter actually. I just put like a Lurrus Delver deck. I was like, maybe Grixis Delver gets better again. Here's a rough idea. And then also Zerda. I was like, this is kind of cool. We'll go Monolith or Basalt Monolith. And then Oopsie Daisy. There, give me my Fox back. It's always fun playing with broken cards. I'm glad to say I was playing with Lurrus and Zerda and Breach at their height.
Yeah.
God, just the people
you
that
had
play
to be there.
You did. The people that played with Lurrus, like, just think back to it. Like, you just laugh about how broken it was. Like, you didn't used to have to pay 3 mana. You used to just cast it from your sideboard. It's just That's so insane. utterly insane. Yeah, I'm just smiling now. It's completely ridiculous.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I just wanna activate Night for the Liquery and then untap it with Script Range and just do it all over again. This is my Christmas, Easter, birthday all in one day.
Okay, you do that, and I'm gonna like play Turn 1 Urzes and then Echo and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds slightly better. Moving on, there's another question coming to us from Nevershoot, and drumroll, it's about Doomsday.
No.
Actually, no, it's not about Doomsday. It's more about like general deck building principles. And he's asking, Julian, regarding your principles on not committing much or any side spot space to a specific bad matchup, and instead just planning to dodge it. And then in bold letters, how much does this decision for you get impacted by the likelihood you will be facing said matchup? Like for Doomsday, Delver is notoriously bad. If we commit a large part of our sideboard, it might improve the matchup somewhat, but it would still most likely remain unfavorably regardless. So he's saying, for argument's sake, let's say we can take it from like a 30-70 to a 40-60 matchup at the cost of committing 6 to 8 committed sideboard slots. Like, whoa. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But I'm not sure that's how it works. Like, you definitely know way more than I do about that. But if the numbers were like this bad, that you're like 30-70, and then like if you commit half your sideboard, which you can basically not use against anything else, and then you just take it to 40-60, I would not play that deck in the first place. And now I'm looking at it from the other side. I see Doomsday doing really, really well. So either those guys are really getting lucky with the matchup, or the matchup isn't that bad. I don't know. Maybe you're just like, you sent me the numbers and okay, the matchup apparently is really bad, and then you just gotta look out. But if the numbers are that bad, I wouldn't play that deck in the first place if Delver is as common as it is. But actually, I don't even know how common Delver is right now, because from what I've been told, and I think we mentioned that on previous episodes, your matchups against the rest of the field are insane. And then there's a point to be made, right? If you play a challenge, for example, and it's like, I don't know, 7 rounds in the Swiss, and you play Delver twice, and you luck out once, then you're in the top 8, and in the top 8 you have to, maybe you can dodge Delver entirely, then I'm okay. But if I go to a tournament and I expect like to face Delver like 3 rounds out of 6, I'm not playing the deck in the first place.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting situation. I don't think we've had it that I remember in Legacy before. So if you came to me with this argument and put those numbers in front of me saying Delver is quite clearly the most played deck, and it is, especially online, and then you give me those numbers, I would say if you can't get it better than 46, you just do not play this deck ever. It's crazy to think of. But I don't think we've had a situation where you struggle to make a matchup better so badly like that, and at the same time your matchups across the board is so good with the deck that you're still winning like almost everything else that is worth playing. I just can't think of any other example like this. So there's so many like sliding scales. So the more you make Delver better, the more you'll be sacrificing some other matchups. But then you have to try and work out how much you can sacrifice those matchups before you lose your edge of beating everything else. Essentially, like how far do you have to cut the Emrakul and the Sheldokyle to make more space for Delver? Will you still beat like Snow or Black Band Control decks, for example, without that? And I think they're still playing that, so they'll probably come to the conclusion that no, they need to play those things because the deck can beat them through endurance and stuff. But then at the same time, yeah, like you might have to, make sacrifices so that you're winning your Band Control matchup 60-40 by cutting the Sheldok and the Emrakul, and take a loss every now and then to have these extra 2 or 3 sideboard slots to make Delver close to 50-50. And then, I don't know, so when Delver's getting better, you're winning more matches in general. And then, as Julian says, if you play in a challenge and you play it twice and luckily win some, like 40-60 doesn't mean you never win. Like you do win 2 out of 5 games every time as well. So you're going to do okay. I think Legacy is, despite, like Ragavan Blue decks being very popular and Doomsday being very big and stuff, and D&T doing very well. If the format was like, wide open, you might not be able to afford to do this. But if it's very, very narrow format with just a few kind of decks, you could just give up on another matchup. Like for example, if Bant just starts to fall off, if Bant carries on losing if it does lose to Delver and like Sagavan and D&T, for example, if that matchup starts falling off, you can then take this opportunity to cut the cards for that matchup and think, okay, well, if I face it in this percentage amount of the time, then it'll not be as good as I usually do, but I'm making these matchups that I actually queue into more. It's really actually hard to answer without knowing more numbers in place and stuff, and you probably can statistically work it out by how much you play against these things and how much you can afford to lose on the numbers and stuff. But there's a way around it. I think the answer to trying to make Delver better, because if you do play versus it enough, is probably giving up some other matchups or some percentage there.
Yeah, so something I just also started thinking about is if you have like 8 dedicated sideboard slots against Delver and they barely increase your matchup, like the thing that you don't want to hear, and I mean that it makes sense to still mention that, is then maybe you didn't build your sideboard well, or maybe Legacy just doesn't have these cards that actually really improve the matchup, because it would be somewhat crazy to me that a deck as powerful as Doomsday can't find 8 good sideboard. Like, I guess we need a Doomsday expert here, but I'm skeptical about the idea of having 8 dedicated sideboard cards against Delver, like stuff that's really good against Delver. I don't know, say like Carpet of Flowers.
That was the first card I thought as well.
I guess the idea is that you don't really play green in Doomsday anymore. Like everybody's playing Grixis these days mostly, so I guess that's a little bit more of a cost. And like other cards I think about is like Meekstone, even though that's not nearly as good against Delver as it used to be. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe you are losing yourself in that, because I see Never should talk a lot about like how desperate he is to beat Delver with Doomsday, and like everybody playing Doomsday confirms that to me. But when I talk to like other guys, they don't, like, they acknowledge it, but they don't seem as concerned that that's a problem, to the point where they would literally have like a transformational sideboard where you bring like Uro and everything, and just like you're not a Doomsday deck anymore.
Yeah, it depends what you consider like a committed sideboard slot as well, because I mean, you could argue that Pyroblast or Fatal Push or something like that, you know, you're going to bring it in against Delver and it's good there. But for me, a dedicated sideboard would be like Carpet of Flowers and Uro. Unless, like, you know, again, Martin and like Kai and people like that know more than us. They've obviously tested that. They played that kind of bug version with Oko for a while as well. But to me, that's where I'd go, and then probably lose a lot. And it's like, okay, fine, you were right. But Carpet and Uro is, you know, extremely potent against Delver, so maybe that's the place to go.
I guess the better way to understand it would also be like, what is Delver actually doing that hurts you? And from what I understand, it's just like the typical Delver thing, right? You have the tempo game and also like having a little bit of burn, but that makes it harder because, like, okay, I think I get it now, kind of. Like, Doomsday passes the turn a lot more often than it used to, like when it was a much worse deck. Now it's a much better deck, at the cost of also like passing the turn, and the deck didn't used to pass the turn that much anymore. And like passing the turn against Delver after you just like lost half your life, I think that's one of the biggest. So maybe you'd want, I don't know, something crazy like what's it called? Angel's Grace?
I was about to say that. I was just waiting for you to finish the sentence. Like Angel's Grace, yeah. I don't know. Then they just like bolt you in your upkeep.
I don't know, something like that.
They always just bolt you in your upkeep. Yeah. But I think the thing is, like, you know, cards that are going to make you survive when you pass the turn just always fall into the same thing of like, if you had the 1 or 2 mana to play the thing that's going to make you survive the turn, you probably could have won on your turn anyway. So I think...
So you need something that has Suspend, that comes off Suspend and then buys you a turn? I don't know. Yeah, I think we're doing the same thing that Martin is doing right now, which is like totally disfiguring the deck to a point where it doesn't work.
Yeah, anyway, I really do feel like Carpet is probably just the best thing to do against it, because you get all the mana, so you don't need to pass the turn probably. It's
yeah. So actually, I posted something in our show notes as well about Ellie. By the way, Ellie posted a really good thing on, I think, is it pendrelwhale.com?
Yes.
Pendrelwhale.com.
I read this the other night, and it's a fantastic article. Like, so good.
Yeah, he wrote an article about his second place finish in the Mox qualifier, and he played lands, and it's not a tournament report, it's more like a biography as a player, almost like where he's coming from, how his way of thinking about the game has changed, and what has shaped his way of thinking. And he quotes me, or more or less, in one of those things, and that's about ignoring unpopular bad matchups, and how I talk about that, and how that's like part of how he built his deck for the tournament. And I think the most important part here is, when I was always talk about ignoring certain matchups and building your deck or sideboard, it's unpopular stuff, right? I want to be good against the most commonly played, something like 4, maybe 5 decks in the format at best, and I almost literally ignore everything else. And that's what it's about, right? And that's why I think Martin quoting me on that with regards to Doomsday and Delver, it's not really super applicable, because I would certainly be very concerned with Delver if I was playing Doomsday.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, we're obviously struggling to give a good answer because we haven't played Doomsday anywhere as much as them. I'd like to talk to you, Martin, more about it, though. I'd like to see how, or like, you've obviously played with and thought of Carpet Flowers and the Uro sideboard and stuff. Like, maybe that's the place you should be going to, and just giving up on some other places.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to go.
Maybe we have to get him on.
Yeah. In speaking of adaptation and the format evolving, dude, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen a lot of either like new versions of established decks or completely new decks coming back, or totally dead decks rising from the dead again. And I want to say, like, the last 2 or 3 weeks have been some of the most exciting in recent Legacy, just because like there's so much stuff going on. I really feel like now that these new cards have come in, everybody's like, oh, they're so broken. Now slowly, you know, everybody's like adapting, mutating, like trying to reach the next level, and those decks are doing well now. Like, at least some of them have, both in the Legacy challenges as well as in the Legacy Super Qualifier that happened, placed really highly. And the first one I actually want to talk about is I called it the Neo Czech Pile in Legacy. Well, is it even like, imagine you came into Magic and you're like, okay, so what do you play? And people are like, oh, this is Elves. What does it do? It plays Elves. What is Murfolk? It plays Murfolk. What is Doomsday? It plays Doomsday. And then somebody's like, this is Neo Czech Pile.
It's a good name. I mean, it is a bunch of good cards.
I mean, isn't even a name I just like randomly came up with? Well, I think Anuraag calls it the A pile.
Okay. I mean,
that makes it much better.
I mean, first of all, it's got a fucking tiger and a plateau in it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. those cards, those duels used to be respectable dual lands. Like when I started playing, by far the worst dual lands were like Scrubland and Badlands, and we joked about how they're basically named appropriately. Like Tiger was very much respected. It was like a survivor of the fittest staple, and Plateau.
Yeah, and Zoo.
Yeah, actually Plateau was loved out. Yeah, okay.
Plateau's always been laughed at. Yeah.
Is it the worst dual land?
It must be. Like, it's played in Strawberry Shortcake, Team Italia.
You're reaching. And a Neo Czech Pile.
Neo Czech Pile. This deck, so it's still a blue-white control deck, but it's just, continuing to splash good cards. And Expressive Iteration is the newest good card to splash, and Anuraag's clearly done well with it. He won a challenge with this deck as well, I believe.
True. Actually, he's got the commentary of the top 8 on Shuttle Fireball.
Yes, I saw it this morning, exactly. So this was the PTQ that he took forward with it, and then he also won the challenge. So the deck is clearly strong, and obviously he knows what he's doing with control decks, but it's like shown its worth. Expressive Iteration is just crazy good, right? Like, it's a 2-mana draw 2s, and it's just efficient. Pitches to Force is pretty real again, as always. I know I always point it out, but it's a real upside. And I feel like I didn't watch Anuraag streaming this deck, so I haven't seen it in action really, but I think it's just him experimenting with how far he can push the mana. Like, how much is he going to get bodied by Wasteland decks if he pushes the mana further and further? I mean, he still has 3 basics in there, so you can like lead with the basic the first 3 turns, and then that's the golden spot where you can then start casting Jaces on 4. The deck just like having the iterations and Uros as like extra like cantrips or like filtering on card draw. It's going to find you more lands when you need it, and there is 22 lands, which is actually quite high. When he was playing the Abundant Harvest lists, they were like 19-20, so he's clearly...
there's no Abundant Harvest in this anymore.
Yes, yeah.
We've upgraded it.
So the Abundant Harvests were like lands, but now you're wanting to play the iterations on turn 3 or 4 often. You're wanting to find real lands off it, so you can exile it and play that off the iteration stuff. So yeah, the deck looks like a bulldozer classic control that we've seen the last couple of years, the Euro control things. And
so it's like 2 terminus. Like when I look at these decks, I'm like, oh, this is so bad against anything that goes wide, but no, there's still 2 terminus. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And now he's got
prismatic ending,
4 endings, 4 swords. This is the adaptation that like these decks need against Delver. They need these 8 1-mana removal spells to keep up with it. I really think if it went for prismatic ending, even though I think it is a bit of a negative card to have in the format, I don't like how wide applicable it is. But if it wasn't for ending, I'm pretty sure Delver would be a lot more dominant. So we can kind of hate it and thank it.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, right? This is the next thing. And so even though the deck started off being like really good against Diver, like ever since Diver became a lot more of a mid-range deck, I think the deck had issues. And I put a headline on this deck list, quote unquote, the biggest deck building hole in recent Legacy history. Because I feel that the way Bond used to be built over the last 1 or 2 months had such a huge deck building hole in it that went somewhat unaddressed for quite a while, and now this list is somewhat addressing it, and that is just like how utterly incapable of doing the deck was once Uro had been taken out of the picture. Like post-board games, you can try to stop a surgical extraction on Uro, but half of the decks, or like more than half the decks you play against, where you could try to stop a surgical on Uro, you don't even want to have forces post-board. And that's just like such a big problem. Whereas pre-board, half the lists I saw, they couldn't even deal with Caracas. Like, yeah, you can use Urus like as a draw engine still, but eventually your graveyard dries up, and you get to a certain point where if you escape too much and then you endurance yourself, so you don't even endurance all that much back. And that's part of why we've seen the deck like struggle with time, struggle with decking, struggle with so many stupid things, even though like it was drawing so many cards, but eventually, like, all it did was, like, Swords to Power Shares and prismatic ending stuff, and then try to get there either on the back of Chase. Like, this deck often didn't even play Chase, and that's why we saw so many games won with Shark Typhoon. And, yeah, I always felt like this deck had real big issues, like strategic issues because of that deck building hole, and this is what's being somewhat addressed here by having a little bit of a better deck post-board. Like, I still think that problem somewhat prevails, but at least you have Red Blast now. It's just having access to Red Blast to take out like all of the important decks, cards in your opponent's deck. That's just like such a big deal. And I like this, like, for as much as I hate like 4-color good stuff piles, I like this deck quite a lot more than Bant Miracles.
Yeah, I think it's well built. Bant always just felt like it suffered so much with that Red Blast, as you say. Like, you felt like you could just slam your Teferis and Jaces against them and just feel free to do whatever. Endurance did help address the Uro issue quite a bit, and so there's only 1 here and 2 in the sideboard. But when Bants are playing 2 or 3, that is a pretty legit win condition. But I do agree, like, it has been leaning on Uro a bit too much in the past, and here 2 Jaces, a Shark Typhoon, 1 Endurance, and 2 Snap Custom Age. Given how the deck plays out with the card advantage and stuff, I think that's enough to close games for sure.
Yeah. Something that's interesting about Expressive Iteration is that it's not the kind of card I would expect like in a control deck, because like I would expect something like everybody's favorite Predict, because it gives you the same kind of card advantage, even though I would argue the Predict gives you like half a card more because you get to basically scry 1 card into your graveyard. In that way, Expressive Iteration, like if you play it on the 3rd turn and your opponent doesn't have a creature and you hit a removal spell, it's like really awkward. Then I guess you can take that into your hand and then you hope that you find a Ponder or something, or maybe a land that you can play. So I guess you can do it. It's just like not the first card I would have thought of. It's more like you want to play it, and then you want to play something to the board. And this deck with Expressive Iteration will rarely ever put something to the board other than a land, which is okay, but it's not amazing. But somehow it still seems to be good enough. I guess part of that is like if you get Wastelanded a ton, and then like on your 4th turn, you only have 2 lands, you go Iteration, you hit a land, that's really good.
So there are like slight differences where, on face value, you're looking at Iteration and Predictors, like they're both draw 2s. They both have their downsides, like you could miss a land with Iteration, and then not, like, you have to pass the turn. Or Predict, obviously you don't have the time to set it up, or you miss whatever. But like, they play very differently, and they both want you to do different things. So Iteration is like a better card in a raw sense of the way. Like, you are just taking 2 cards because you can play 1 that turn. It does have the deck building requirements if you want to have enough things that you play this 1 turn. So, but I think with all the removal and then the cantrips and stuff, you do have that many things. There's 2 Sylvan Libraries as well, which can either, like, more nice things to just cast that turn, or like help set up actually to an extent so they can find you what you want to Iteration into. But it's almost always drawing 2, and so you want to have a higher land count because you both want to hit the land when you cast it on turn 3 onwards. You just want like more lands to play so that the Iteration can find 2 spells and like cast something straight away. And I always thought there was a bit of a weird sense when you had Uro as like your main condition in the Bants before with Abundant Harvest, and then Abundant Harvest kind of, I like the theory of them replacing lands. I think that made sense, but when Uro like is not getting more lands and put into play, and then like pulling ahead, and then they kill the Uro, and then you just like recast it again with ease and stuff, there was always a little bit of friction there. So I do like that Iteration and Uro, I think, play quite nicely together. Whereas they also just reward you for playing cantrips. Like, so the cantrips, if you play them early, you're going to fill the graveyard for Uro, and they just find the Iteration, and the Iteration just finds more cantrips, and you just keep playing these spells, and you're continually seeing cards, and that's what Control wants to do. You don't want to be playing this draw go game, because the other decks are playing Iteration, like Delver's playing Iteration, so is the Jeskai deck. So, and then they have as a Saga sometimes if they have the Control version. So you do not always win this draw go thing. So I think Control does want to be playing these things, whereas Predict is asking you to either save your cantrips until you draw a Predict, or to cantrip in a certain way, and it just like puts this extra little strain. So there's a way that Min always describes these two kind of styles of cards in the Miracles Discord, and he says one is a contraption. So Predict is a contraption, so it's part of a bigger whole, and so it is great with cantrips and stuff, and it plays very nicely. And if you're playing more actual counter magic as well, it plays nicely as well. But you want to build your deck in that kind of sense of the way. Iteration is just a raw card. It's very good. It's going to draw you 2 cards later.
That's like raw power.
Exactly.
That's where I want to be.
It's going to find the land. So again, this higher land count makes sense to me. So I think the way this is built, Iteration and Uro and just this whole style of deck plays better than Predict does in the way.
I guess it would also be like you would have a huge leg up on the mirror just because you have Red Blasts and Expressive Iteration.
Yeah.
Like the one guy has Expressive Iteration, the other guy has slightly fewer lands, but Abundant Harvest, I definitely want to be on the expressive iteration side.
I think so, yeah. I would say even without iteration, the difference of having Pyroblast is just day and night. Yeah. So it's just worth the splash probably already. And then, iteration is now just enough of a reason to go into it.
And so how do we exploit this? How is this like good enough that people should be slamming Blood Moons on the first turn again?
No.
Shit.
Well, the thing is, Blood Moon, I think, is probably quite good in the format. The Blue-Red Delver decks, I mean, it kind of sucks that Ragavan is just there. They cast it for red, and they get a treasure, and then they cast whatever they want off that treasure. So, I don't know. I've cut Blood Moon from Painter, for example, because one, it kills your Sagas, and two, it's just not that great right now. As I said, Ragavan kind of trumps it, and if it weren't for Ragavan, some of the Blue-Red Delver decks are still playing basics. You got D&T everywhere, doing very well. Blood Moon and Chalice are probably the worst they've been in a very, very, very long time. So, yeah,
that's true. Like, Chalice is barely even a factor. Like, do you even think about Chalice when you build your decks? Like, to me, it's like a complete non-factor. Going back to like ignoring stuff that's not popular and building your deck accordingly. Like, I don't even like remotely think about Chalice.
I think we're back to the days where Chalice decks were like Werewolf Stompy for a while. And it's just like, lol, I lost to it. And then you move on. Yeah.
Oh, Chalice, by the way, is a good thing to talk about because, interestingly, that's missing from the next deck that we're going to talk about. And that is the deck that minus 110 played in the actually won the Super Qualifier. It placed first. And how do we call that? It's not like New Affinity, because people used to have the thing like that Urza Stompy, at least that's what I called it. I like basically the deck that played Echo of Eons and Urza and everything and tried to leverage Karn and stuff. This is quite different, even though it uses a lot of similar cards. This is actually, we should probably like go over the list just so people can get an idea of why this feels a lot more like Affinity. So it plays 4 Emery, Lurk After Lock, 4 Psy, Master Thopterist, 4 Thought Monitor, which is the new thing with Affinity for artifacts, I believe, that comes into play and draws 2 cards, 2/2 flyer. It plays 4 Echo of Eons, and now 4 Thoughtcast, which is the sorcery that people played like back in Mirrodin, which draws you 2 cards and also has Affinity for artifacts. It plays 4 Force and then a bunch of artifacts like LED, Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bobble, Mox Opal, 4 Urza's Bobble, and on top of the lands, also 4 Urza's Saga. This is quite different from the Urza's deck, right? Like, I thought it was kind of the same, but after playing against it, this is much faster and much scarier.
This deck, I freaking love. It's so, I mean, as a surprise for a fan of like artifacts and stuff. It's built amazingly. As you said, like, you know, Chalice is not great. And I think this player, they've done very well. This is the player that made the white and blue splash artifact deck and took down a challenge when as a Saga first came out. And nice. So they obviously tinker with these artifact decks a lot, and this is just great. Like, so Emery is like a staple of the deck, and she's always there. Thought Monitor, the power level is just, you know, super high. It's just a perfect fit, these kind of decks, and they've clearly identified that Chalice is not very good right now, and so they're moving past that. And Psy has always been like the best card in these decks against Delver. The body is just amazing as a 1/4. It obviously doesn't die to Bolt. And then you're making out flyers, so it like blocks the Delvers. And now like the flyers, they block the Murktide region and the Dragon Rage Challengers. And obviously both the tokens and Psy are great blockers for Ragavan. It just matches up so well against Delver still. So that's, you know, 4 of them is clearly, you know, respecting Delver. And then a trend with these kind of artifact stompy decks was to they all started with 4 more Urza's Bauble and 4 Mishra's Bauble, and they slowly cut them to adding more mid-range cards. And like Calm was always great against control decks, obviously, and control is always very popular. But as Delver gets, you know, more and more popular in the metagame, and even the control decks being like Sagavan, they're now lower to the ground and they can snowball faster. So I think moving on to this kind of style of list is just great, and you just have so much raw card advantage as well from the Thought Monitors and the Thought Casts, and you know, having all these baubles again to cast them. The deck just sees so many cards as well, like the echoes. When you like land a Psy and then you echo and then just play all these zeros, there's so many zeros. You just go off. Like, I was watching Jarvis stream last night and he played a mirror against Bob, and I think Bob might have timed out, or maybe Jarvis attacked him for like 500 on turn 20. But like, their boards, they were just both echoing and both had size, and they both had like 50-50 constructs, and then the Shadow Spear giving them trample and lifelink, like absolutely ridiculous mirror match. You have to see it to believe it.
The Sai is just so good in the deck.
Yeah.
I remember I played against it, and I think on the first turn they played Sai, they played Echo, and then they passed with Sai at like 7 top tiles, and I was like, I think I should just concede here. Like, this is not even worth trying to beat.
Good. So
yeah. The Shadow Spear is also such a nice addition, right? Once you have Urza Saga and like you got these big stupid tokens and they don't do anything, all of a sudden you put Shadow Spear on them, they have lifelink and trample. Like either of those would already be really good, but now you got both. I just love that card.
And obviously it goes without saying, but Urza Saga is incredible in this deck. You're making huge constructs, and so you're going to just trump any Saga mirrors basically. And I think this is like the first version of these artifact decks that has Force Will main deck as well. And so it's the addition of Thought Monitor and Thoughtcast that's allowed that. The blue count was always a bit low, but I think there's just enough now. So 24 blue cards.
24, yeah.
Yeah, seems good. So, yeah, I mean, winning a PTQ, which had like a bunch of players I didn't see, big accomplishment. And obviously you must have beaten Delver to get along all the way there. I saw on Twitter, Bob asked the player, like said, what's your Delver plan? And he just replied in Japanese, it's a secret.
I like it.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, that deck, something you can do with the deck. For example, when I played Blue-Red Delver against it in like one of the leagues, I had my giant big Murktide, and I didn't even want to attack into their Thought Monitor because that means they can replay it from the graveyard with Emery. I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, I can even force the jump block, and I don't want to do it because it's just going to give them even more cards. If this deck could have like something like maybe have something that's similar to a bubble, but that allows you to like maybe sacrifice a creature for value, you could get an even insaner engine than it already has. Like this might legit be one of the most powerful decks in the format right now. It's really, really good.
I can see it. I only just saw the 4 Force of Negation in the sideboard as well. That insulates you against like other combo decks so well. Like to have 8 forces. Holy moly. So I can see this deck completely like, against other combo decks. It just plays like a slower, grindy control deck to an extent. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving everything about it. Just so well built. It seemed obviously like just leaning on these super powerful cards as well. Yeah, big fan.
So smart, by the way. It has 1 expedition map on the sideboard. So I guess against control you would still often get like Retrofit Foundry. But if you want to like play it really long game, then you first find the expedition map, find your second Saga, and then you find the Retrofit Foundry. So you have a slightly longer chain in case they have, say, a prismatic ending for your Foundry.
Chef's kiss.
That deck's so good. Actually, like I'm gonna finish my League with Elves, and I might just load this up right afterwards.
I think I'm actually. So I said tomorrow, a monthly. I'm not playing, but I'm gonna bring this deck along.
I might do the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it along, put it together after this. I've got my red painter looking next to me, looking sad actually, but I'm gonna build this. I'm gonna cheat on it.
So now we're moving from like the new hot mono blue stuff to one of the oldest mono blue decks in the format, and that is, I guess we're just calling it High Tide, right? Doesn't really have a fancy name these days. And that is, High Tide, played by, I would like to respond, good friend of the podcast, Marcus Ewaldh. And he actually streamed the entire thing. And the VOD is still on his Twitch. I just told him to maybe export it to YouTube as well, so it's going to be preserved. Either way, we're going to either link to the VOD on Twitch or on YouTube. And that was like such an amazing stream. Did you tune in to watch him like go all the way to the finals?
Not the whole thing, but I watched the last hour or two to the side. I wasn't super chatty,
like
but
5 turns.
Yes, the 5 best turns. Just like his love for the deck is infectious. It's just unwavering as well, right? He'll just always like, I'll be talking to him about something, and he'll be like, sending a smiley emote, blah blah, and just talking about how anything really, and then they're like, oh yeah, do you want to like do this? But it's like, no, I'm just like in the middle of comboing High Tide. He's just constantly playing this deck, and they'll just like randomly mess the chat like, hey guys, got like 3 5-0s in a row with High Tide. He does it somehow. It's such a beautiful deck as well. I mean, I'm sure we're like talking to tons of fans that just love the deck as well. But the way it's built, just seeing like a bunch of 4-ofs. Actually, there's a few 3-ofs now. Marcus is like deck building. He hates 3-ofs, but I guess he's given in there.
It actually has like 4 3-offs. Cunning Wish, Flusterstorm, Predict, Turnabout. Well, the Turnabout makes sense, right? One's going to be in the sideboard. Yeah, it's in the sideboard.
3 Predict doesn't feel very Marcus. We need to talk to him about that. But it's awesome to see him do well with it, because he's always doing pretty decent with it, and no one else seems to be having success. But he just, it shows when you've played a deck so much in your life, and he almost just autopilots it now. He just knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, so before the cast, I was actually asking him about, like, what's the secret? Why is he doing well with this all of a sudden again? And he just told me, all my matchups are good, except for Affinity and Infect. Like, oh, okay. And then, actually, he sent me another one, and that's like, most matchups are slightly favored, and the fairer they are, the better. And then, like, half a minute pause, and then he sends me, but I don't fucking know, because I beat 6 Ragavan decks and lost to Yorion D&T twice.
I was watching that D&T final as well. Dress Down was about to be the MVP, and then, what's it called? The
Deafening Silence?
Deafening Silence came down. He was so sad. He was like giggling in his chair, like, I'm going to dress down the whole board of like Spirit of the Labyrinth, Thalia, Mother of Runes, all the mean cards. And he was literally just like jumping up and down in his chair. And then Deafening Silence came down, like slump, sad fucking face.
Yeah.
Dress Down must be a huge addition to the deck though. Like, he was always playing Teferi's Realms. I think he has about 5,000 in his house. But
and that's not even like joking. I think he literally has he might have like 20% of all of them that were ever printed. Yeah. Like his room is basically like full of them. If you look to one wall, it's just like all Teferi's Realms.
Maybe his room is Teferi's Realm, I guess.
It might actually be. But yeah, like you said, Dress Down was like such a huge upgrade, right? It's so cool. You can like flash it in on their end of turn, and now even if they, for example, like while in a creature on your turn, doesn't even matter. Unless it's like Flicker Wisp and... Flicker Wisp on Dress Down. Oh no, that doesn't work as well. Ah!
Yeah, no abilities.
Oh man. How many Dress Downs does he... he plays 4 in the side part. That's like... That tells you that card is really good. Is that really all it took?
It draws a card as well. So he's obviously...
that's actually a really big deal.
Yeah.
Like, when I watch these matchups, for example, against something like Band or Miracles or anything, like, the hate bears you brought in, most often, like, Either Spawn Cannons, were a huge deal, and then you would, like, fight over those. And now you can, like, Dress Down and take it out that way. Yeah,
so you just Dress Down, or if they don't have the hate bear, then you just Dress Down to draw a card and then go off and stuff as well, so...
It's never bad.
Yeah.
Never bad, yeah.
The floor is really high, so amazing. Yeah, we should get him to stream more. I think gone are the days of the notepad zone. He used to stream but without a mic when he was like, the kids were in bed, and in the evening he'd be like notepad zone, and he'd be going to the notepad and talking to chat like that. It was so sweet. But no, everyone check out his stream. I think he got a new Twitch, so I don't want to say it because I'm going to say the wrong one. It was like, I saw that I wasn't following, so I think it's like twitch.tv/Ewaldh.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
to check the VOD.
Awesome. So I asked him whether there's any card that's good against him, and he also said it's probably Deafening Silence. That's the one thing. And oh yeah, by the way, also like I just see this on the next page of the show notes. Also, like, why is it becoming so good again? Like, one thing is Dress Down, but the other thing is also that most combo and control decks, they rely a lot on Force of Will and Force of Negation, and a deck like High Tide that's really only looking to resolve. Basically, it's a sorcery, right? High Tide, because you're only going to play it on your turn. But this is all you're looking to resolve, because then you're just going to spam your opponent with stuff, and they eventually run out of counters. That's why everybody usually fights over High Tide. And the deck is really good at winning that fight against just counter spells. And I think, he even has like 3 more Pact of Negations in the side part, so you have like 4 pacts, which is basically the premier way to protect your combo. And if I was playing like a mid-range control deck, I would be super scared of this.
I would be absolutely terrified. Like, with 4 pacts and then 3 Flusterstorms and Forces, like, he's just gonna, like, you need to put a clock on him super fast, or he's just gonna just cantrip and find the perfect hand on turn 5 or 6, and there's just so little you can do about it. Like, as he said in his comments, he's saying, combo decks or control are relying on counter magic stat based stuff rather than Narset or counterbalance. Like, Narset or Hull Breach is probably some of the biggest like headaches for this deck. Because it's just like they play it on their turn, so it's kind of Force of Will and win that fight or bust.
True. Oh, yeah. So you can't even like Pact of Negation it, and I guess you can, but then you gotta tap out for a turn. This is so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Because his answer then is literally just Cunning Wish for wipe away, I think. Yeah.
I think he told me he's going to move away from Viperway and he's going to play Chain of Viper again because it's better against Deafening. Yeah, dude, that Deafening Silence really hit. That caused like some serious PTSD for him.
Yeah, but it makes sense because like if you're bouncing an Narset, like he's never having anything in play to bounce. They want to sacrifice a land for as well. And if you're resolving Cunning Wish against a deck with counter magic, then you're probably resolving the Chain of Vapor rather than the Wiperway anyway. So. Yeah, I mean, people are always going to counter the Cunning Wish if they have the chance rather than what it gets, almost always. So that change makes sense.
Cool. And with that, we're moving on to the deck that actually took down the challenge. And I literally can't believe how this deck keeps getting away with it because it's actually getting really scary. I don't remember when we had like a non-blue, non-combo deck this dominant in a format ever. And I'm still not 100% understanding it because it's an 80 card deck, right? It's Yorion Death Taxes, and I love Death Taxes. I love midrange. I love doing all these cute, sweet little interactions. That's like what I love doing, even though I'm not a fan of Yorion. But I mean, the results are there, so I can hardly argue against that. Callum, can you tell me why this deck is so fucking good and keeps putting up the numbers and wins and wins and wins and wins? Like, what the fuck is going on?
So we kind of like went over it on the last episode, I believe. I hope we did. Otherwise, I'm just making stuff up. But we said how Death Taxes has always had these, like, you know, rises and falls and rises and falls. And there's sometimes Death Taxes players saying the sky is falling, the deck is terrible. Often when like Plague Engineer is very, very popular and stuff. And that card is just nowhere to be seen at the moment. So it's probably like a little part of it, but I think the main part of it is the Delver and the blue control decks are like, they're all so powerful. They're having to really like arms race each other and keep up with each other and, you know, playing all these Pyroblasts and all these kind of spells to make themselves win the mirror because they are super popular online. And the fact that like Death and Taxes and then the blue Brainstorm decks are on such polar opposite ends of what cards are good against either. I think Death and Taxes is still just like not being given the respect it deserves from their sideboards, but not because they aren't aware that Death and Taxes is very good. I think a lot of the best players who are playing blue decks do know that Death and Taxes is strong, but playing Sagavan, like, I think they are doing a similar thing what we were talking about earlier with Doomsday. Like, they're just like, it takes so many cards to make Death and Taxes very good that it's just not worth it, because Death Taxes has got a lot of good upgrades as well. This deck is playing for Solitude, which I think was a bit of a sleeper. Everyone was unsure on it at first, and it kind of flopped in the control decks, but having Yorion to be able to just like put into your hand an extra card to pitch is always nice. And Death and Taxes is always a deck that's wanted to try and it constricts mana, obviously that's just like part of its primary game plan, but it's always been very bad at playing from behind, and it's never had this kind of catch-up mechanic like Force of Will is, whereas Solitude now is a catch-up mechanic. And it does have cards like Spirit of the Labyrinth or Mother Runes that are just like very hit and miss and amazing in some matchups and terrible in others, and you have the extra copies of Thalia sometimes, and so you do have cards that you can pitch fairly easily, and you do have pretty good card advantage engines in like Recruiter and Flicker Wisps and stuff as well. The deck is just better than it was before. So again, to make these fair blue decks better against Death and Taxes, they can't just like throw a Null Rod and a Plague Engineer in the sideboard and kind of be done with it. Because yeah, you'll find one or two, but like Death and Taxes is going to keep playing creatures, and like they don't line up like perfectly against those cards anymore. So I don't even know how Sagavan would like really turn this matchup on its head. They need to have, I guess, Moat Tides and then just counter the swords is their answer to it, but it's pretty tough. Also, control decks used to lean on Monastery Mentor to beat Death and Taxes a lot in my experience, and we just don't see that card anymore as well. So yeah, I think Death and Taxes is just why it's continuing to do well and not having this dip that we usually see. It's almost like a kind of a stock graph, like going up and down, but now it's just staying up, and I think there's a good chance it stays up for a while. It's just very, very good against what everyone's doing.
That would be one of the healthiest things ever to happen to Legacy, when a completely non-reserved list deck like becomes this good. I hope nobody ever tries to add reserved list. Actually, is Caracas is not reserved list, right?
No, Peacekeeper in the sideboard is.
Okay, whatever.
I had to just get it in there. I was like, gotcha. But
buy all the Peacekeepers.
it's basically there.
Actually, you know what? Do you have any idea how expensive Peacekeeper is right now?
It's not too much.
I have no idea.
10
Yeah, it can't be too much, right? But
no.
I can't imagine this card not spiking at some point.
Probably.
Like right now it's like close to 20, okay. Like 18, 19. I still remember it being like 2-3 euros, but whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, the rest of the deck is cheap. Like we've had Wastelands and Rishon Port and Caracas reprints and stuff. I hate this deck, the Yorion build, because I ordered tons of really nice, beautiful Portal lands when I put D&T together a year ago. And then Yorion came along. I need to order like 7 or 8 more of them. So I'm playing with a mix. And so
I think you can manage.
I'm not playing. I don't have Yorion in my paper build at the moment, but I need to get Solitudes as well. Fuck that. 60 card for life. Woohoo!
The way I think about Solitude, the way you just described it is like you're D&T, right? You're playing from behind. You're struggling to stay over water. And then you get that thing, that Solitude, that gives you that boost for a moment. Like that way you think like, oh, I'm turning the game around. But once you've turned the game around, normally if you use a card like that, you then fade away. You just like, you don't have the cards anymore. But now all of a sudden, like Yorion rises from beneath you out of the water, lifts you like up above the water, and now you're like there and you can play the game and use all your amazing interactions that require so much mana and while. And that's like in my head, I try to think about stuff like that. That's kind of how it works, and that's why you can Solitude, and that's why you can come back in games that you're somewhat behind. Because previously, when you preached, say, your Recruiter of the Guard to Solitude, once you've stabilized, then you had nothing else to do. But now you can Yorion and flicker your other Recruiter that you have, your Flicker Whisper or anything. And that's how you get back into the game. And yeah, it makes sense in my head.
It does to me as well. And I don't think Death Taxes has ever had a problem with card advantage. They do play this long game. They have the utility lands. This deck has 2 Arts of Saga as well to be more utility. With all the equipment as well, like your Recruiter of the Guards are threats in the late game. And you got Stoneforge Mystic to get them. Like as I said before, Recruiter and Flicker Wisp is an amazing engine. The deck is just not going to run out of gas very often. And yeah, Solitude does give you that, when you're getting like Ragavan into Daze and stuff, they're going to force a will your Swords of Plowshares just to keep the snowballing. And then Solitude, is going to be able to just keep you on par, on mana in these games where they're using a free counter spell and you're using a free spell as well. And it's great that you can, like, it's a body as well. Like, Death and Taxes very often gets to 5 mana. You just cast it, do the thing. You can vial it in, like, you're getting vial to 5 for Yorion sometimes. It's not super uncommon now. And so with Solitude as well, and you can Recruiter for it, it's just, icing on the cake. I think...
Yeah, Solitude, like, we didn't really talk about it. I mean, you talked about it right now. I didn't even think about it. Like, it's a very respectable body, right? And I think it has lifelink as well.
3/2 lifelink.
Like,
flash.
that thing on its own is already like a nightmare for Diver. Like, it takes out your Murktide Regent, and then it blocks your Diver, like, just in one card. Oh my god.
So I think that's probably a big part of why the deck is continuing to do well. And I think this is why a big part in why the AD card is doing well as well is as I said, Yorion as this final whale rising in the sky after you've traded all your resources and stuff. So
here's a thought. Can you imagine how much money Wizards of the Coast would make if they literally took this deck and released it as a precon? Like, I don't know, charge 500 euros for it. Like, people would buy that.
They definitely would, yeah.
Holy shit, that would be like that would be the gateway into Legacy. Like,
imagine Legacy precon
playing Death Taxes.
with like, you could do Rainbow Depths as well. That'd be pretty cool.
You could. Oh yeah. Oh my god, that's actually a completely different playstyle, right? So that would be really cool as well.
What else could you do?
Can you do High Tide?
No, Time Spiral is reserve list.
Yeah, but come on, that's reserved list.
I think you need that. What about this blue Affinity deck? Oh, Lions at Diamond. But you could probably build this deck without Lions at Diamond.
I guess you got to take out the Echo of Eons then.
Yeah, you could just put some.
I mean, how hard can it be to print like a functional reprint of Lions of Diamond? Like, it literally has one of the harshest downsides.
Lions, no, Eye Lion, Diamond Eye Lion, or whatever it's called from the last one, Horizons. God, I'm good with names. Whatever it's called. Yeah, hey, it's pretty close. There was the actual Affinity deck with like Esper Sentinel and stuff that had no reserve list, I believe.
Yeah.
All right.
And by the way, in speaking of precons, you probably know this, but 10 years ago, there actually used to be a literal Death and Taxes precon in Magic Online. Have you heard about that?
I bought that back in the day.
You bought that one that had like Benevolent Bodyguard and stuff because Mother of Runes hadn't been released in Magic Online yet.
And I think did they give you like 2 Stoneforge Mystics or something? Can't quite remember.
I don't know what it was, but it was like actually playable.
The value was basically worth it. You lost very little money, and I was like, okay, I was just getting into Magic Online. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to keep an eye on how Death and Taxes is doing, because this theory that this is the time where it continues to be good. Checks out in my head. Sounds like it checks out in your head. Let's see.
I wonder if the next step for the 4-color banned mid-range decks is to just like go all 5-color, play City of Brass and Gemstone Mines and stuff. Oh my god, can you imagine like you get Gemstone Mine and then you also get Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, so you never remove the last one and then you just like keep tapping it as a forest? Yeah, maybe not. That's really bad.
I think if you just tell Anuraag you're going to put Gemstone Mine in his control deck, he'll never talk to you again.
If we ever build that with like 5 colors, there's still going to be like 3 to 4 basic lands. I bet.
Oh, yeah, of course. Gemstone Mine is the 4th land that you play Jace with, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. And then you add black, and now you finally get access to your Virtuous Ruins. It's about time.
So actually,
I keep hyping the card. I don't even own any.
No, but like, how would you attack Death and Taxes as a control deck? Like, just take Anuraag's deck
as a control deck. Well, I mean,
looking at this list is really hard.
I think the obvious thing, like I mentioned, is to have something that really punishes white, like Virtuous Rune. But even then, it's like awkward because they can pull some Flicker's tricks and still stay in the game. The one thing that people are trying right now is to do something like Torpor Orb, because it comes into play abilities. That's basically all the deck is. But how does the deck actually get rid of Torpor Orb? You can't Flicker Wisp it.
You just play creatures.
I guess you can. No, you can't Skycliffe Apparition it. You just play creatures, equipment, and attack. I mean, that's what control is supposed to be good against, right?
Probably. Like, you have the Sagas as well to an extent. Torpor Orb is very good against it. I'll give you that. It's obviously like far from an auto win, but Torpor Orb is step 1 to beating, I'm sure. I also like a point I wanted to make earlier when starting to talk about Death and Taxes is, despite Anuraag doing very well with this deck, I think Planeswalkers, and especially like snowballing Planeswalkers like Jace, that can carry on having the game under control, they are dropping off. Like, Jace is pretty bad against Delver, and so it's just been played a lot less. And Jace was one of the absolute best cards against Death and Taxes, especially when you can get rid of the Aether Vials, like with Prismatic Ending. I think Jace is the card that can make control beat Death and Taxes. So if Jace is making a comeback, that's actually probably one of the best ways you can fight it.
And then I guess you can fight over the Skycliffe Apparitions if you have to, and even if it happens later after you've brainstormed, it's okay.
Yeah. I think like looking at these two lists now, the way I would beat this Death and Taxes list with Anuraag's deck is I would just play all the removal, obviously, like get a Jace down, keep it brainstorming, and then you need to hardcast that Shark Typhoon to win. That's your game plan, I think.
Oh.
It's
not exciting to me because I hate that kind of gameplay. It's like the antithesis of what I want to do in Magic. I just want to Flicker Wisp, Quirion Ranger, and untap and replay, and that's the extra sound I make when playing paper.
The Apparitions, the Solitude, and the Swords, and the Caracasses. You're just never. Well, you have to be very lucky to win with a row against Death and Taxes, I guess. And then there's one Endurance.
Yeah, it's not happening, right?
Yeah, so actually, crazy. Control just has to lean on hardcast Shark Typhoon, because if you don't hardcast it, then it's just getting Flicker Wisps or Solitude or Swords as well. Ugh, yeah, tough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the biggest trap is just like trying to answer the creatures and stuff. Like even just Thalia and Caracas on the board is the biggest nightmare in the world. I recently played Delver again and was like, oh my god, I'm literally never beating that. I have to pay like 4 mana and lose a card to beat that.
Violon 2, Caracas, Thalia is just, yeah.
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 It's never happening.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So yeah, that's tons of decks I want to play. Like I'm not even sure now. Like I even want to play High Tide again. Like it's been
me too.
Literally 10 years this October since the last time I played High Tide in a tournament.
So sweet, so cool. I'm sure Marcus will get first next week, and then you'll play it for sure.
One day. There's just like so many decks I want to play, so little time to play.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. You're gonna tell us next time which deck you actually picked for your tournament. Mine's still like a month away.
So I won't actually be playing tomorrow. I'm just overseeing and overseering. I'm gonna bring a deck to play with people to the side.
Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if you want to support Everyday Channel, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Helps us out a lot. Helps people find more podcasts about Legacy. I think just last month, 2 more were started. I actually don't remember the names, but Legacy is the format that has the highest podcasts to active player ratio, right? I think that's how it goes. So it's good that the format is like inspiring this kind of commitment and creativity. And if you want to support that, give us a 5-star review there. And also consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/everydayeternal. Become part of our community. Watch all the awesome food that our patrons are making and posting to the Discord, and also like basically send us any of your questions and hang out with us there. So yeah, that's the worst way I've ever tried to market that.
It's cool, guys.
There's
I
food
promise.
And there's people. We post decks, ask questions.
Love it.
So yeah, that's so thanks a lot to everybody who actually looks at the food and gives us the money and asks the questions, especially our Everyday Eternal Patreons on Eternal Witness tier level: Tommy Hinks, Testacular, Sebastian Hollager, Guillaume, Jake and Severin Schwarzhuber, and on Grizzlebrand tier, Victor Bernatz, Bachubat, Scott Monroe, Jeremy Gates, Henrik Korkutz, Tom Happ, Bill Schlichting, and Paragon Games in St. Louis, who recently got VPN Premium. I think that's what it's called. Paragon Games got the highest thing you can get as a store, like within the first year of being created. It's being run by our friend Scott Monroe. And that's quite the achievement, because apparently like none of the other stores in a radius of 250, I think he calls it miles. That's just like this ancient way of measuring distances. It's pretty far away. Have that. So that's a really big deal. So if you're anywhere in that area, definitely check out Paragon Games. Awesome. So that's going to be it from us today. See you again next time. Have a great time, and let us know which decks you want to be playing in Legacy right now, because there's just like so many to pick from. Hit us up on @EternalMTG on Twitter and @EternalMTG on Instagram. Thank you so much, Callum. Thanks for coming on. Have a great time, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.